Joe, Rob, and Madeline. I always enjoy our conversations. Even though we come from different cultures, I have always appreciated your kindness, sincerity, and faith. I have always been fascinated by history, politics, religion, and philosophy. Because of language barriers and limited time, I often find it difficult to express everything I would like to say. But today, I would like to share our remarkable chapter of Chinese history, a chapter that began with a friendship between a European missionary and a Chinese scholar. Before I begin, I should mention that the missionaries in today's story were Roman Catholics, not Protestants. The great Protestant missions that later contributed so much to Chinese education, medicine, and modernization would arrive more than 2 centuries afterward. Their story deserves its own chapter. Today's story is the first chapter. It begins in the 16th century with an Italian Jesuit named Matteo Ricci and a Chinese scholar named Guangqi. Everything started from Matteo Ricci. Matteo Ricci was born in Papal States and joined the Jesuit order at the age of 19. He received an outstanding education in philosophy, theology, mathematics, astronomy, and engineering in Rome before starting his legend. Actually, he was not only a missionary, but also a top-class scientist at that time. In 1582, Ricci arrived in China after crossing half the world and began what would become a 28-year mission. By that time, China had been deeply shaped by Confucian culture for over 1,000 years. Funnily enough, even though the word Confucian isn't actually related to Confuce, it is just a westernized way of saying Confuzi or Master Kong. I have no doubt that studying his ancient philosophy must have been incredibly confusing for those early translators. Ricci quickly realized that if Christianity was to be understood in China, it had to be presented with respect for Chinese culture rather than in opposition to it. He adopted the clothing and customs of a Confucian scholar. He studied the Chinese classics, spoke fluent Chinese, and used Western scientific knowledge to engage Chinese intellectuals. In 1601, Ricci was allowed to settle in Beijing and became the first European known to enter the Forbidden City. There, he met one of the most important figures in Chinese Christian history, Guangqi. Guangqi was born near what is now Shanghai. Despite his intelligence, he struggled for many years in China's difficult imperial examinations. In 1600, he met Matteo Ricci in Nanjing. Ricci's knowledge of science and his character deeply impressed him. 3 years later, Xu was baptized and took the Christian name Power. He must have prayed a lot, because the next year he passed the highest level of imperial examinations and entered the central government of the Ming Dynasty, which means he met Ricci again in Beijing and began one of the greatest intellectual collaborations in Chinese history. Together, they translated the first 6 books of Euclid's Elements into Chinese. Many modern Chinese mathematical terms, such as geometry, point, line, and angle, were created during this work. They also collaborated on astronomy, surveying, and hydraulic engineering, helping introduce Western scientific methods to China. Ricci's greatest achievement was not simply introducing Western science to China. It was winning the trust of some of China's most respected scholars. Through friendships with men such as Xu Guangqi, Di Zhizhao, and Yang Tingyun, Christianity gained a place within China's intellectual world. For a time, many of the brightest minds of the later Ming Dynasty became interested in both Christian faith and Western learning. When Matteo Ricci died in Beijing in 1610, something extraordinary happened. The Ming court granted him a burial place in the imperial capital, an honor firstly given to a foreigner. After spending 28 years learning Chinese language, studying its culture, and serving its people, Ricci was allowed to remain in China even in death. It was perhaps the highest recognition that China could offer a man who had crossed the world to make China his second home. After the death of Matteo Ricci, Xu Guangqi continued to spread Christianity and science, and reformed Chinese agricultural production using Western technology, effectively relieved famines. Back in 1616, because of ongoing cultural conflicts, the traditionalists started a big political fight. Lots of missionaries were arrested and sent away, and the emperor banned Catholicism. Even so, Xu Guangqi didn't disappoint his friends. He courageously stood up and put his life, family, and career on the line to protect them. He also secretly settled a big group of missionaries in his hometown, which named Xujiahui, what is now a part of downtown in Shanghai. And one of those protected missionaries is Adam Schall. Fast forward 13 years, and the government was in a bind because their official calendar kept making mistakes. Luckily, Xu Guangqi had just been promoted to Minister of Personnel. He used his new power to recommend Adam and the other missionaries he had secretly saved years earlier. Together, they created a game-changing new system called the Chongzhen calendar. This wasn't just a temporary fix, it was so accurate that it essentially the same calendar still used in rural China today to map out the farming seasons and celebrate every major traditional festival. Sadly, the calendar never got the chance to be used during the Ming Dynasty, which was already nearing its tragic end. Xu Guangqi passed away in 1633, and just over a decade later, in 1644, the Ming Dynasty collapsed entirely. Today, Xu Guangqi's tomb is actually located in Xujiahui, which happens to be right near my office. In fact, that peaceful spot is one of my absolute favorite places for my work breaks. When Qing Dynasty captured Beijing, Adam finally got the chance to convince the new rulers to use their game-changing calendar. Because of this masterpiece, the Qing court appointed him as a director of the Imperial Observatory, making him the first foreigner in Chinese history to hold this position. He ended up doing that job for 17 years. During those 17 years, Adam completely won the trust of the Emperor Shunzhi. They became super close in private. He even influenced the choice of the next emperor by pointing out that a prince who has already survived the smallpox is a safer bet. That comment actually tipped the scales for the final decision. However, along with the death of Emperor Shunzhi, political opposition eventually led to a major persecution. In 1665, during a famous political case known as the Calendar Controversy, Adam Schall was sentenced to lynch, the most scary and miserable execution. Before the sentence could be carried out, as a miracle, a series of earthquakes struck Beijing. Many people interpreted these disasters as a warning from heaven. The sentence was overturned, and Schall was released, though several of his Chinese colleagues were not as fortunate. Adam Schall died the following year in Beijing. By 1669, the young Emperor Kangxi had grown up and wiped out the rivals who tried to control him. With full power finally in his hands, he officially cleared Adam Schall's name to honor the man who had secured his throne. Kangxi ordered that Schall be buried next to Matteo Ricci, whom he had greatly admired. In the early years, missionaries such as Rossi allowed Chinese Christians to continue traditional practices such as honoring ancestors, believing these customs were cultural rather than religious. Actually, it called Rossi's rule. However, this approach became controversial within the Catholic Church. In 1704, Pope Clement VI prohibited these practices. The Kangxi Emperor viewed this decision as foreign interference in Chinese affairs. Tensions grew, and after Kangxi's death, the Emperor Yongzheng banned Christianity throughout the empire. After that, Christianity survived mainly underground in China for 120 years. This long period of prohibition interrupted the unique partnership between faith, science, and scholarship that figures like Ricci, Guangqi, and the end of Schall had established. After being defeated in the First Opium War, China reopened to foreign missionaries, and the ban of Christianity was gradually lifted. When missionaries returned to Shanghai in the 1840s, they discovered something remarkable. In the district of Xujiahui, descendants of Xu Guangqi and the local Catholic communities had preserved their faith for generations, despite having no contact with foreign clergy. Building on the legacy of Rossi and Xu, they established schools, libraries, observatories, museums, printing houses, and scientific institutions. These institutions played a significant role in the modernization of Shanghai and helped transform it into one of China's most influential cities.